Welcome to Inbox Zero, the show where I empty questions from my inbox and put them up here because I get a lot of the same questions over and over again. So, this question, first one, this question is actually going to be mostly this whole episode about podcasts. So, first question, actually got this one a little while ago, but it's a really good one, which was I had a podcast, we got views, but never clients. We brought on other podcast hosts who had bigger followings to kind of get some of their audience, but it never led to anything. So we shut it down. Why? Like, basically, their question was why. And I had a conversation with them a little bit, and we learned more. And basically, what happened is they followed the playbook that a lot of top podcast coaches and podcast companies give, which is leverage off the back of other podcasts, get viewers from them. And they were in a very specific town in one province in Canada. And they were having guests on from Alabama who had a big real estate podcast there and different podcasts around. And it's completely the wrong approach because their goal was to build their local business. So for example, we here, if I was to go back to real estate sales today, I live in Newmarket, Ontario. I would not have people on, generally speaking, that don't live in Newmarket. There might be the odd exception here and there, but someone in Alabama offers no real value in terms of what I want. If their audience comes to watch my podcast, that's not going to help grow my business unless it happened to be, it was an area that got a lot. If I heard an Alabama company just relocated their headquarters to our town, maybe, I'd want to look at doing one with someone there to help drive some of that over. But overall, that's not valuable. So the way that I approach it is completely different. If you're in a local business and your goal is not to become an influencer, it's to get clients, you have to change the approach. Look at a podcast or a show or anything like that as a networking tool first. So I did this with Over a Pint, where it's I looked at who are people I want to spend time with, get to know, build a relationship with. And that's why I always filmed in person. So I would go and spend time with them. And you'd want to do the same thing. Is how can I go and spend time with people? So look at locally, who can refer you a lot of business? Who, mortgage brokers, lawyers, local business owners, who do people in town respect? And have the mayors on, politicians, other politicians, counselors, have people who run the local newspaper, different things, anyone else who locally knows a lot of people and could potentially refer you clients, have them on. That's what's going to overall in the long run help you grow your business from a podcast. It's not about getting a lot of views. If you live in a town of 100,000 people, then 100, even if every single person in the town download your show, from the grand scheme of podcasts, that's actually not a huge one, right? So you're never going to get up to that top 10 of Spotify podcasts, and that shouldn't be your goal. Think smaller quality listeners, so that niche group locally. And I'm going to I would say at least your first 40 or 50 episodes minimum, I would barely even look at how many people actually watched and listened to it. I would be focused on who's on the show, who am I building the relationship with, and there's things you can do, right? If I found the ideal person to come on my show, and what I would then do is I'd have them on, I'd promote them coming on the show, I'd promote the episode, I'd run ads to drive more things to the episode, but then I'd make sure that they're seeing all of that. Then I would also create clips for them to post on their social. I'd create assets for them to have so that they can further promote it as well, because I'm trying to build that relationship with them to make them like it as much as possible, so you would do the same thing. But that's the goal of a kind of a real estate podcast. It's not to become this big massive thing. It's about using it as a really good networking tool, because a lot of people will be like, hey, can I, I'd love to grab coffee with you. And people get that request all the time. Even when I was in real estate and I wasn't a big agent for the couple of years I sold, I did all right. I'd still got people all the time be like, hey, can we grab a coffee? I'd love to pick your brain. Can I grab a coffee? And a lot, there's just so many of those requests that come in from people. It's hard to get to them all. But if someone said, hey, I got a local podcast, I'd love to come on and interview you. It goes from a 15-minute coffee, potentially an hour or two on a podcast, getting to know them, learning about their business, then helping them promote their business. much better relationship building tool, but focus on that angle. It's a relationship building tool. It's not something to like get thousands or tens of thousands of downloads. All right, next question. How long should my episodes be? I don't care about length. Like, you can do it in 10 minutes. You could do 4-hour episodes. The key is they have to be interesting. So, like, there's two parts. Like, that first part is it's more about the relationship you're building with the person. So if you're having a great conversation with them, let it keep going. If you want to publish if let's say you had the best conversation and even most of it wasn't that interesting and it was 3 hours long, great. Do a 3-hour episode, put it out there. Cause again, it's about the relationship with them, and you like cutting it down to like 30 minutes to be like, oh, there was a lot of good wasted stuff in there. And they might feel a little bit bad about it. That's not great for the relationship first. So do a super long episode. That's fine. So basically talk as long as you have something to talk about. If that means you're doing 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, like I would try to benchmark mostly for like a true podcast about an hour, but then you cut up shorter clips for stuff like social and different areas. So like I'm still using shorter videos as part of it, but like the full super long one, that's what's going on like whatever the main feed is that you're using for it. How do I get leads from a podcast? So there's a couple different ways, right? So like you have the podcast episodes, these go out, and that's more brand awareness, relationship building, that style of thing. You can certainly add at the end of every episode, like I would adjust it. So like say I'm sitting next to someone, I wouldn't be like, all right, thanks for coming on. Now let's talk about, no, I would actually cut to a separate video that gets added to the end of it where you're in a different setting, different background, and you're like, thanks for tuning in. Next week, we're going to have this person on. By the way, if you want to find out what your home would sell for, I have a link down below where you can actually just put in your address and it'll tell you what your home is going to sell for. Or if you're thinking of selling, here's how we can help you, right? Like you have that little bit of that direct call to action that just gets added to the end. So a very soft one, but it's like, hey, if you're in the market, just put up your hand. Here's how we can help. That's option one. So just a very direct kind of added to the end, which I would often do. But I'd mix that up with like follow me, things like that. The next one is lead magnets. So that's option two, is just be like, hey, by the way, if you want to get a copy of our guide on how to get your home ready for sale, go here, right? If you doing different things like that, you just have a lead magnet to offer them. It can be a link. It can be sending them to Instagram to DM you something. But your goal is to drive them to a next step. That's not putting up their hand to saying I'm going to sell, but it's saying like, hey, I want that thing about real estate. That's option two. Option three is you're publishing like your regular podcast episodes. And then once in a while, you do a more in-depth real estate thing. Like, here's how to buy, like, so again, I'm in Newmarket. So I'd be like, here's the best places to buy investment properties in Newmarket and why. And it's more of an in-depth look at buying that. Or maybe it's, here's the 5 best places to buy a home if you're looking for a good school in Newmarket, right? So like you're kind of doing more real estate focused podcasts, like episodes that are just once in a while seeded in that help people along their journey. So think of who your ideal clients are, what questions will they have, let's put that there. And that's what you're going to do once in a while with, again, a very direct call to action at the end of it. So while the majority of your content's the show, you once in a while put out these kind of educational, that's very directed at people who are in that time. So it's another easy way to get leads from it. All right, next question here, and the last one for today. What do I do once I have a podcast episode filmed? I personally actually go YouTube first for things like this. Then you can share out the audio, put it on like all the different platforms. We use Libsync, and that helps push it out to a lot of them. Libsyn. It goes out to a lot of different platforms through there. But then, so like that's the first thing, right? Is like you want to make sure it's pushed out everywhere. You have it available for people. You also want to cut smaller ones of it. You want to email your list about it. You want to post it on social. Like once you have the content, this needs to go out to everybody, right? So like you're going to put it on social. You're going to promote it in your email. Like if you've created it, take the time to do it. If you have a guest on, make sure they're getting copies of it. Make sure they're seeing it. Making sure they have versions that they can put out. Give them, before it even goes out, preview posts that they can put on their social saying, hey, coming up, we're going to have this. Like if you want someone to post about you because you're doing something with them, give them all the tools to do it. So that's a really important thing. But think of like, like for one single episode, overall time, 20% should actually be you creating the content. 80% should be you making sure it gets in front of people. Episodes that are starting to get a little extra traction, start throwing more money behind too. Like run ads to it, get more people to see it, get more people to download it. But just keep getting it out there. But focus, like a lot of your goal there is that extra distribution, because that also helps build the relationship with the person that had it on. But don't be discouraged if like for a while you're not getting a lot of views, because again, it's more about the relationships you're building than it is about anything else. And that's why I always made sure every episode at minimum, when I used to do my show over a pint, had $50 to $100 behind it in the first week, because I know a lot of people in like the first week, they're going to go look at how many views it got. So if like you get the average episode having a couple thousand views and then like theirs got 40, they might start to feel bad, right? So like you always kind of force some views through by running ads to it. And it helps get through that way too. But then the ones that do really well, push it. So like I made sure every episode of Over a Pint always had at least, so we used at the time, this is a while ago, primarily Facebook video to promote it, because that's where our audience was. That's where we did really well. And I always made sure 2, 3, 4, 5,000 views minimum per episode. And the ones that did really well, I promoted a lot more. Like we had one episode that got up to like 120, 130,000 views. So you want to look at it from that perspective. Is I want to make sure I kind of guarantee a minimum, which is spending on it, promoting it, getting it out there. And then the ones that do really well, I go even extra on. And the nice thing is like I would also keep like a little category. Like I just keep spreadsheet pretty simple of here's the episodes that are evergreen, which means that if someone watches it today or 5 years from now, it's still relevant. And here's the episodes that have a little bit of a time on it. Like I had episodes where I could get people on, because like a big thing is like if you want bigger names in your area, look for when they're promoting something or have something coming up, they're more likely to come on, right? Like big authors, it's easy. Like if you want to get someone who's like an author to come on a show, you wait for them to have a book to publish, because then they want to promote the book. And so for them, it's part of like the media tour. And that's the best time to ask them. So, or if they have like a conference coming up, like this happened to me a few times where like I got names that normally maybe not come on it because they had a conference coming up. And that episode though was kind of more conference focused for them. So once the conference passed, it wasn't as relevant, the content itself. So we would then look at shifting. So I always kind of kept that spreadsheet of here's the evergreen content. I can promote it anytime. So like I had episodes sometimes that were a couple years old, I'd still promote. But then other episodes I knew like there was a limited shelf life of how long I could get these out to people. But yeah, that's all kind of the questions that I typically get into my inbox about podcasts. So if you have questions that you'd like me to answer on a future episode related to marketing, business, in the real estate realm, shoot me a message, email me, andrew@justsellhomes.com. Happy to answer them. You can also comment below and I'm happy to answer as well. But otherwise, appreciate you coming. Make sure you subscribe so you see future episodes of Inbox Zero.